Hello and welcome to your practice, whatever that might look like. This video is built not to necessarily be a traditional yoga practice in and of itself, but rather to showcase some movements that might feel particularly nourishing if you're feeling tension in your neck, your shoulders, your back, or if you happen to wake up with a kink in your neck, something along those lines. You might integrate them into your practices if you do practice yoga or movement of any sort, or it could be something that you turn to as needed all on its own. For this, you will want a strap. It does not need to connect its ends. It probably needs to be about 3 feet long. You could use a belt or webbing, just a strap of any form. And we're going to go ahead and actually start with this. These movements that I'm about to show you are taken from one of my favorite yoga teachers, Lydia Zamorano. She also has a fabulous YouTube, so check her out if you like these movements. And we're going to go ahead and hold the strap around our neck. You can find that big knob where your neck transitions into your thoracic spine, right at the base of your neck, and place the strap around it. Now you might have to keep a little bit of downward pressure to hold it in place, and you can let your hands walk out a little bit. And from here, you're going to pull with your left hand, and that will make it feel like you're going to look to the right. And so allow your head to follow through and look. And then pull with your right, with left. And just keep going back and forth at a pace that feels right to you. You can reposition your hands or change where they're at in space. If your strap starts to crawl up your neck, you might need to keep a little more downward pressure on the strap. Now, sometimes if I'm incorporating this into a yoga practice, I'll do this in a standing lunge or a low lunge, just in case you're thinking about that for yourself. All right, let's go ahead and stop this movement. Crawl your hands further up the strap, and we're going to move it so that it's cradling the base of your skull. So you can feel those two knobs, your occipits, at the bottom of your skull. We want the strap to pressure into those points. And then you can lean your head into the strap and kind of pull upward on it. So there's quite a bit of arm activation here, but your head is quite heavy. Soften through your jaw, and then again, begin to do that side to side. You have to move your hands a little. Let this movement come entirely from the strap. So your head is heavy weight. We'll go ahead and come to a stop here, knowing that that is something you can come back to, of course, either of those movements throughout the day. Let's get into our shoulders just a bit. Widen your grip on your strap. And from here, we're going to bring that strap overhead and pulse backward. Think of there being a slight pulling from side to side of your hands. One thing we want to be cautious of here is that we can easily flare out through the ribs as we do this. But if you keep your torso more integrated, then you might feel more supported here, and your low back won't become the focus of this. It stays in your shoulders. And then we can bring arms all the way down. Maybe you widen your grip on the strap to allow for that to happen. Your arms don't come all the way down in the back, that's also fine. Just go to wherever that stopping point is for you. Bring the strap back overhead. We're going to move over to one side and the other. You can, of course, begin to find some circles here. We call this flossing the shoulders. Can be really nice if you have any sort of adhesions built up surrounding your shoulders. All right, let's go ahead and set the strap down. So this next bit of movement, if you do have a kink in your neck, you might not do this next movement because it might land weird. You can always try it out and see. For what it's worth, those first movements with the strap, if I have a kink in my neck it would typically, without that intervention, last me about a week of, or maybe 5 days of like sensation. And of course, it gets better throughout that, but it's still pretty noticeable. Once I started using these movements with the strap, typically the day after I've done those movements, my neck feels like it would on day 5 or 6 without using that intervention. So I hope that if that's the case for you, you also find that to be quite helpful. Now, if you have some stuff going on in your low back especially, that's where these next movements are going to come in, or in your shoulders even. We're going to start by swinging the arm side to side. And you might notice that your torso naturally comes along for the ride here. That's great. If you try not to move your torso, then it becomes more of a muscularly driven movement, and it stays in the arms. And we are really trying to get some movement through the fascia of the back. And so you might notice if you want to move your head with this, or if you want to keep your head pretty neutral, if you have a kink in your neck, maybe some slight movements, but not, getting too carried away with it. If your neck's feeling good, you can, really get involved with your neck and head. And then from here, we're going to begin to tilt forward. And you'll go all the way until your torso is about parallel to the mat. And we'll find the movements here. And this brings it down into the low back. You might be able to feel that. Try to keep a nice deep breath going here. And we'll go ahead and stop the arm movement, maybe let some swaying happen, and complete this forward fold. There can always be a bend in the knees here, letting your torso really hang heavy over your thighs. Since we're targeting the back, it's not necessarily even advisable per se to have your legs super straight here, because that brings the attention to the hamstrings, and that might feel supportive though. If some of your low back issues are coming from your hamstrings, this is where you might notice it, right? So you can straighten them and see if they're really tight, then that could definitely be a contributing factor to any back pain. It's often one of the first things physical therapists will recommend is, if you're having back pain, check out your hamstrings. All right, and so you might find some pulsing of the torso here. Or if you do that, if you straighten out your legs and you think, yeah, that's not doing it for me, then soften into your legs and really let your torso come close to your thighs. And from here, you might think of wagging your tail, but try not to do it from your legs. Like, your legs are going to come along for the ride, but let the movement be initiated by your hips, which is different than if we just, bend into the knees and wag the tail that way. All right. From here, let's keep a little softness in the knees, crawl hands over to the outside edge of the right foot, bend a little extra into that knee, straighten a little extra into the left. Return through center and then over to the left, bend a little extra into the left leg, straighten a little extra into the right. Come back through center, let everything hang heavy. Try to look at your belly button here. And as we roll up, keep looking at your belly button, keep looking until everything else is lifted, and then your head lifts. And then we're going to soften into the knees and waterfall the torso forward. Same thing, but this time we're only going halfway up. So look at your belly button, come halfway up until everything else is lifted and your head can lift. And then exhale, soften down. Let's do one more. Inhale, halfway lift, chin lifts last. Exhale, soften down. This time, full body, inhale, roll all the way up, reach your arms up at the top. And exhale, let your arms come down by your sides. You might notice if repeating any of those movements sounds yummy in your body, or if there's other movement that you'd like to add in at this point. You might feel like that was sufficient, and I hope that whatever you choose, it does feel nourishing and supportive to your body. Thank you so much for tuning in to this little snippet of practice.